Hi, this is Franco Iturriaga, writer and director of the movie Artificial Flowers. And today I thought we're gonna do a director's commentary where I explain all the little details, inspirations, and all the ideas I had while doing this, what it meant and all, and some technical facts on the side. And already we can see a lot of artificiality, artificial nature. In the background we got paintings of flowers. The carpet is reminiscent of grass. And he was meditating. You could see it as a form of therapy because his son died and all. You can see it still haunting him. He still carries this picture of his son around. And it's hard for him to go into this room and seeing this lifeless android around. So he must meditate to cope with this. And as we learn in a few seconds, this is the 16th attempt at doing this, so he's not in a good headspace right now. And here we already see a discussion from them that he's not able to upload into his Android body. But Avery fixed it, and Andrew's ready. I have to pause right here because there's a lot of information here. The first attempt, I wasn't there. You could say the first attempt, or the way I thought of it, is some kind of sick joke. The first attempt of his son Andrew, was his actual son, not the androids, a human being. And the first attempt failed because he wasn't there for his son, so his son killed himself, so this is why the first attempt failed. The fourth attempt, Can't Open My Eyes. This is what we see later in the dream sequence. And the sixth attempt is also interesting. It's not human. Probably the AI was pretty good for our standards, but Avery's standard is really high. He wants his actual son back, so this is why this attempt didn't work out. Seventh attempt, wrong voice. That's interesting if you think about it, because why would he write that if he had something to compare it to? So this was this very first clue that Andrew was a real person back in the day, and this new Android version just didn't sound like him. Oh, and while I'm at it, the names, Avery, Andrew is just this thing that it sounds like Android, and I'm not even the first one to come up with it. The 200 GA man with Robin Williams, they called him Andrew too because of the same reason, so yeah. Avery I saw this movie. It's called The Place Beyond the Pines, and it's about fathers, the influence of fathers on children and legacy. And one of the fathers, who is not really a good father, he tries, but it's very, very human. He can fail, he's not perfect. He was called Avery, so I thought this fits. This is reminiscent of the painting Adam's Creation, when God and Adam touched their fingers. But it's flipped this time, because in the original painting on the right side is God, but in the movie on the right side Andrew. Maybe there's something to think about there, some metaphor. Oh, I probably should explain the jacket thing because it wasn't that clear in the movie. It's really cold in this room because Andrew is an android and all these machines have to be in a very cold environment. So he always has to put on his jacket, but yeah, well, we didn't quite pull that off in a movie. Oh, and we had the first small existential thing of Andrew here, this am I these parts? Avery thinks no, he's more than these parts, and this is really the question of this movie. Can something be more than its parts? What makes something alive, what is special about being alive, what makes humans or living things different from artificial things. And that's the test. Really basic test. Motorics is not even part of consciousness, it's just about fitting into the real world, which already you see that there's something different about Avery testing his AI, because normally AIs don't have to move like a human, but in this case, because he wants to replicate the sun, he should move like a human. And has Andrew ever really left this place? Well, his robot form might not, but his human form sure did. This is why Avery had this flashback about his son committing suicide. They play football. I thought of it as in the USA, this is always this cliche about fathers playing with their sons in movies. When the fathers try to make something right with their sons who they abandoned or something, they always go out and play football with them. So I thought this was a subtle way to introduce that maybe there's a father-son relationship going on here. And it's green. Green is just for me a way to express that Andrew feels emotions, and he's happy now because I wanted him to feel emotions, but I wanted it to be a robot type of way. It had to be visual, surreal. And now Avery is gonna code. The helmet becomes a thing later. Now it's just, what is he doing? What does it mean? So I'll come to that later. The thing with his desktop screen, it's from a TV show called Westworld, and it's from the intro. And in the intro, it's the skeleton thingy playing the piano, and throughout the intro, the piano plays itself. So this is a metaphor for a creation becoming separate from its creator. And so I thought this would make sense. That's his desktop background. And also he plays piano, so it makes sense. So the second test. Yeah, I think you can figure it out. That's his grave, his actual grave of the actual Andrew. The detail with Avery being a painter, my actual father's a painter, so probably this influenced me, but also I thought it would be interesting if Avery was a creator in every way, not only as Andrew's father, but also in the way that he tries to, through his paintings, mimic nature in an artificial way, in an artistic way. So I thought that would make a lot of sense for Avery to be that person. There's this German guy called Schulz von Thun, and he proposed a model. Every statement has 4 ways to interpret them. First stage is you think about the statement as just that, just the information you get out of it. And second is you think, what does the person want from me? The third is, what does this mean about the relationship between me and this person who just spoke to me? And the fourth is, what does this person say about themselves when saying this info? And Andrew just used 3 of these interpretations of what the statement of Avery could have meant. It should be 4, but, time.
Was bedeutet lebendig sein für dich?
What does it mean to be alive? For me, free will is, to be conscious at least, you need to have free will. Which is funny because I don't really think that we have free will, but I think the illusion at least of free will is what we need to believe that we could be conscious, which is what Andrew needs right now. And Andrew doesn't know what consciousness is, or if he is conscious right now, if he's alive right now. And I think this is not a statement, oh no, Andrew probably isn't conscious because he doesn't know that, and we know that, so why wouldn't you say so if he was? And I thought, we always say that we have free will, but we don't really know that either. So Andrew is kind of not lying. Avery just didn't really plug the cable in, which we are already here in the rest mode, kind of glitching. And right now in this movie, you don't really know if Avery did it on purpose or not. I mean, Avery's really sophisticated in what his tests are, and he really wants Andrew to be alive. So maybe a way to test if Andrew has free will is to look what Andrew might do if he's not being monitored all the time by Avery. And Avery has a way to spy on Andrew to see what he does, because there's this camera in the room. Oh, and Andrew immediately goes to the laptop because his thinking is so much faster. He wouldn't just go back to sleep a second time because it didn't work. So he immediately knows, okay, it's not working. I have to do something else because there's nothing else to do. And everything else would be just a waste of time, and he wants to get more info to be more alive. We got the cams here. The abbreviations are, you get the camera garage, you get the camera of the piano room, you get the camera of the construction room, and the camera of the server room. You never really see the server room because we don't have money and we can't actually film in a server room, but we got some stock footage in there, and now you are able to see Andrew's brain. You see how much server are in there. This really, really big thing in this really big facility Avery works in, so his real brain is not in his body. Now we see Avery talking to his, we can assume, wife and mother of Andrew, and they argue about it, that Andrew can't replace the real Andrew that has died in the past. We see how they're both grieving. His wife is not in a good state, but she knows that Andrew, the real Andrew, is dead and they have to move on, but Avery can't really move on. So he works on a robot because therapy, I guess. And now Andrew discovers his first real way to act against Avery because of this cable. He probably didn't thought about that yet, but the info is in his head right now. Influences that I had on making this movie, most of them were stories about robots, Turing tests, and there's this movie, you might heard of it, it's called Blade Runner, and the funny thing about Blade Runner is that it's a movie adaptation of a book. The title was Do Robots Dream About Robot Sheep? So this really stuck with me because this is such a beautiful way of saying, can they dream as we do, but in their own way? And we wanted to add the scene because what could be in Andrew's mind right now, little snippets of his memory. And this is also the reason why he's not acting like the Andrew we watched the past few minutes, because this is an Andrew that is really reminiscent of the actual Andrew. So this is why Andrew says everything feels weird because he's in a robot body, doesn't feel warmth like he used to do. And Avery is overly emotional of it because this is the first time that Andrew resembled an actual AI. All these God and creation metaphors that will come later in the movie, this was just a first glimpse of, like, he's in a dark place between being alive and being a robot. So I thought about that as the metaphor why he can't see. This effect with loss of detail, of loss of quality, is actually from Mr. Robot, which is funny because of the title, but the same thing happens, and I thought this was interesting. Okay, we're in the third test right now, and it's really important for Avery to get us right this time, because Andrew came so far. It's the furthest he has ever been with this test. And Andrew is actually also nervous about it. A little thing about him becoming more and more alive, more and more intricate. Oh, this is also an interesting frame because you can see these little heads in the background. We couldn't really do that much production design because we have zero money. But this was one thing that we liked, putting these heads there, because you can see this evolution of Avery's creation process of what his son might have looked like in the past. Talking about production design, there's this, we called it generator in the script. And actually the idea of making this movie was, wouldn't it be really cool if we had this sci-fi table with lights in it that switch when something happened with it? I thought, oh, this could be a loading station, he could sleep on there, and then, oh, there's a robot, and yeah, everything really came from that thought. It's just, LEDs look cool sometimes. And also, here's another inspiration for this movie, Ex Machina, which has a really similar structure, themes. Basically what the plot is, there's this creator of an AI, and he wants to test if his AI is real. So for this he invites one of his employees, and the employee knows that this thing is an AI and not a real person. And this is this cool play on the Turing test, because the normal way you do it is you put a human you put a human, you put him in front of a computer, and he's in this chat room, and he has to chat with two partners, and one of the partners is an AI and the other one is human. And the way for an AI to pass a Turing test is if the participant couldn't tell with extreme accuracy who of his two partners were the robot and who was the human. So the way the Ex Machina flipped that is because the participant was fully aware that his partner was a robot. And I thought, this is a cool idea, but why wouldn't we take it a step further? Because the idea of the Turing test is it could pass as human, but I thought it would be nice to explore the idea that this AI is human, or at least, let me phrase it this way, is alive, has thoughts, has free will, or the illusion of free will, whatever, has consciousness. So I thought it would make more sense to put the creator of this AI to be the participant, because then the participant in Ex Machina, he doesn't know how the robot works. He can be fooled more easily than the creator, but the creator himself, he knows. If he can tell, this is really good evidence for it being alive. Let's go on. This is basically Avery being his most god right now and giving Andrew the same decision God did give Adam and Eve. Do you want to take this responsibility? Being able to differentiate between good and evil, which for me means being able to make decisions. What Adam and Eve did was free themselves from their creator, performing an act of free will. This is also the reason why I always found it pretty weird that people generally think of Adam and Eve as this sinners that doomed the whole of humanity, because in my eyes, and in Avery's eyes too, by the way, what Adam and Eve did was free humanity. So for Andrew now, again, if you put a real human in the exact situation as Adam and Eve, and most people think that Adam and Eve did a mistake here, this is a hard decision to make. And Avery misinterprets that, because Avery just wanted one outcome. He wanted Andrew to pick the fruit, because that would mean that he wants to have free will, right? That's funny. Avery did make this test to test if Andrew had free will, but had also the answer in mind that Andrew had to answer to have free will, which is paradoxical, makes no sense. Andrew performed the greatest act of free will in not choosing. And Avery just didn't see that because he's an arrogant bastard. This is the second time. This is the blue part of the emotions that Andrew goes through. And there's this evolution happening within these emotion shots of Andrew. Because first in the green sequence, Andrew and Avery were on the same height. They were equal as father and son. But now when Andrew failed the test and Avery becomes more and more of this unpleased god figure, he is bigger in frame than Andrew and towers over him. And this power dynamic between them changes in the end when there's the red screen and Andrew is hateful, has this rage in him, and he towers then over Avery, and Avery leaves the frame with only Andrew. Andrew uses his free will for the first time. This is a real decision against Avery. This is the first time he acts for himself and fully aware that Avery probably wouldn't want him to do this. What sets Avery apart from other people that do AIs is that Avery is frustrated with making his own code, like writing his own code doesn't work. Then he invents this helmet, and he invented a way to copy what nature has done in our brains in a digital way and interpret it in this digital way. It's actually interesting. I think a year after I wrote the script, this became a real thing. Let's look how the brain functions and see how neurons act in this way, and maybe we can model an AI in this way. And I thought this was extremely cool to hear. Ah, this is funny. In this frame you can see this Phillips box over there. You can see that it's actually mirrored on the other side. This is because the shot for it to make a full rotation. The room is small, so we didn't have the space to make a full rotation. But we explained it away by, this is in simulation. Everything can happen in simulation, even if this part of the shot maybe is not in simulation, but the transition in there. This was inspired by this moment in the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie where the Black Pearl, I think, and its crew, it became alive again, and the screen flips in the same way. And I thought this is the moment he becomes fully alive, and I thought this was a cool visual metaphor of seeing this transformation of going into this other world. Well, in this case, the simulation, but overcoming yourself and becoming alive again. So this is the history of the shot. Which rose to pick? Oh, and she's actually freezing because he can feel now. This is basically the Adam and Eve thing, because there's one rose that is artificial, the one rose that is alive, and if he took the alive rose, then he would be alive. But I wanted that the artificial rose would look better, because the difference between artificiality and some actual rose is an artificial rose always looks good. It never changes in form or shape. It's always nice looking. And this is maybe the reason why you would prefer artificial flowers or artificial roses, because they would never change in beauty. And this is also the reason why Andrew picks this rose. I observed that we always think that we, the natural things, we are alive and conscious, but the artificial things, they are not alive, they are not conscious. And for me, I think this is kind of unfair. We don't really have the viewpoint of something that is artificial. So this is a movie from the perspective of an android, so we experience what it could be like for something artificial to try to be alive. And again, Avery is frustrated because it's not the decision that he wanted him to make.
Ich konnte fühlen. Ich konnte fühlen, Avery.
Das war nicht echt! Du bist nicht echt. Das war's.
Aber ich muss weitermachen, Avery. Ich will lebendig sein.
I love this phrase, I want to be alive. For me, it is just so ironic to say, because if you want, you are alive. Avery and Andrew had this real fucked up relationship. They both fucked up their way of thinking about what being alive is. Avery always had this fixed position, and now he stated that Andrew is indeed not alive and he doesn't want to work on him anymore. And Andrew thinks that now too, but Andrew was alive. Or everything he wanted. What does being alive mean? It means having free will, acting against protocol, feeling emotions. Everything he stated he did in this movie, but still Avery was a really bad father and convinced him otherwise. So the only way to be alive for Andrew was to upload himself into Avery, into a human body, because he thought only then can he be alive, because an AI without flesh, without all the nature, couldn't possibly be alive. wasn't even planned. We couldn't possibly have known that the camera would focus specifically on the glasses. But I'm glad that it happened, because if he were to wake up, which he does now, he would be blind. And for me, this was just a way of, you know, how the artificial flower would always look nice and would never die. Humans are not perfect, especially not Avery. He can't see. He is able to feel cold. He can die. All these things. And I also wanted him to be like a baby, because Andrew is reborn in Avery's body, and this is how he experiences the world, not knowing what life is, not being able to see again. Oh, I got asked this a few times, if Avery was indeed dead, and I think he probably is. His whole neurons got messed up, and for all intents and purposes he's dead. The song, in the earlier version we had the real song What a Wonderful World, but we thought a robot thing would be cool. I imagine Andrew would hum this to himself to comfort himself, this sad thing. And also it's just ironic, what a wonderful world in comparison to what we see. The world is wonderful, but the world is also fucked up, and this is what Andrew experiences for the first time in these last moments of the movie. I think we're done here, and this was a pleasure to make, and this is the first movie we ever done, and so this movie has a special place in my heart for this. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who was part of this journey. I really, really love you for that. This movie has been on my mind for, I don't know, 4 years now, and I think this is really special that it actually exists, and thank you for watching.